Okay, thank you very much for giving this opportunity. So today I will speak on development of climate resilient maize cultivar and their seed production. So here is the outline of my talk. I will first touch upon the challenges and opportunities in maize research and development. Then we'll talk about the climate resilient maize at glance, and then we'll discuss upon we can develop the inbred lines, which is a very important segment of maize hybrid breeding program. And then maintenance of genetic purity of inbred lines, that is very, very important. Then I will shift to the different categories of seeds which are available. And then we'll go for the prerequisites for the seed productions, and then management pre and post harvest. So this is the outline of my talk. Now, here's as we know that maize is now is a crop of opportunity because it can be grown across the season in diverse ecologies, started from north to south, to east to west, and it can be grown in Rabi, it can be grown in Kharif, it can be grown in spring seasons. And if you talk about the yield potential of this hybrid, it has highest yield potential among the available cereals, including rice and wheat and sorghum, bajra. So we can say that this is the queen of cereals, and nationally, internationally, more than 3,500 products are being prepared from the maize. So we can see that this is a very important industrial crop along with the food and feed. And it has great opportunity to provide the employment to our younger generations in the form of a specialty corn, in the form of a hybrid seed productions. And this crop is having a huge export potential as well. So my slides are movable, no? Okay, thank you. So, so here is the little bit scenario of maize in our country. If you look into the growth rate in area production and productivity, the maize has the highest growth rate, 4% growth rate over the past 5 years. And in production, it has around 6% growth rate. In area, it has 2%. Like rice and wheat, maize is ahead of both of these crops. And annually, on an average, we are exporting around 3 to 3.5 million ton maize from our country. And if you look into the Vision 2030, the target of maize production was around 45 million tons. But now, as all of you are aware that now maize is going to be utilized as a feedstock for the ethanol production in the country. So looking into that, we are going to have an additional maize requirement, and that is around 10 million ton extra maize we need by 2025-26. And if you look into the 2020-30, we need around 18 to 20 million ton maize, extra maize. Whatever the maize production as of now we have in our country, this value, this figure is additional to that, and the total it comes to around 63 to 65 million tons by 2020-30. So we can see that there is a huge potential. And if you look into the 2047, where we are going to, our honorable Prime Minister as a target to see our country as a developed nation in the world level. So by 2047, we are going to have around the need of around 100 million ton maize to meet out our domestic requirement. So if you look at the consumption pattern of maize in the country, the most of the portion goes to the feed, and that is around 62%. That includes the poultry, livestock, and if you look into poultry specifically, it consumes around 47% of corn, and remaining 12% goes to the livestock. And this is the major consumer of maize in the country. Into the challenges, research and development those, so they can take into account that what kind of challenges and opportunities that are available in the maize. Biggest target of our researcher, because if you look into the total productivity of a country, that is around 3.5 ton per hectare or 35 quintal per hectare. And if you look into the Rabi and Kharif productivity is around 5.3 ton per hectare, And Kharif productivity is around 3 ton per hectare, which is very, very low. If you look at an international level, productivity of maize, that is around 5.5 to 6 ton per hectare. So we are very much lagging behind as compared to the international level. So the main hurdle in this is the Kharif maize productivity, which is around 3 ton per hectare or 30 quintal per hectare. So our target is to increase the productivity of Kharif maize. So we have to work hard. The challenges, this is the improving Kharif maize productivity is the biggest one. And next one is that the bridging yield gap is very, very important, because when we breed a hybrid in the experimental field, that is yielding around 7 to 8 ton per hectare in the Kharif season and around 12 to 13 ton per hectare in the Rabi season. But when that same hybrid goes in the farmer field, the yield reduction is around 70 up to 70% reduction we are going to have in the field, farmer field. So what is the main component? The main reason is that whatever the improved package of practices which we are adopting in the farm in our experimental field, the farmers are not adopting all of those. Those who are going to adopt it, the productivity is going to be very high in their field. So the bridging yield gap is one of the target. And then we have a lot of now improved innovative approaches like genome editing, genomic selection, speed breeding, and DS technology. These are the technology of new era now, and we have to integrate all these techniques in the conventional breeding program. So this is one of the big challenge and an opportunity as well. Then, as I said that, and you are already reading in the many media or through news channel, through newspaper, you might be learning that now government of India has selected maize as an important feedstock for meeting out the ethanol blending petrol target by 2020, 2025, 26, and E30, that is 30% blending by 2030. So for this, we need extra maize. As I said that by 25, 26, we need around 10 million ton extra maize to meet out the target for the ethanol blending petrol to the extent of 20%. And the same if it goes to 30, that is 2030, we need around extra 18 to 20 million ton extra maize. So this is a big challenge to meet out the requirement of maize in the country. And as we know that most of the portion will go to the ethanol production also. So in this, the aflatoxin is a very, very important, aspects. So the people who are working in pathology or the people who want to work on this particular aspect, this is very, very important now. Aflatoxin contamination is a very important problem. And it is a big hurdle in using the maize as a feedstock, because the byproducts of ethanol production, that is DDGS, is going to be used as a feedstock. And if there is a high aflatoxin contamination, the quality of that DDGS will be deteriorated, and it will not be accepted at the the livestock by the livestock industry or poultry industry. So we have to manage this aflatoxin contamination in maize. Then upscaling of improved package of practices to the farmer field, the people who are working as extension specialists or the people who are working as agronomists, for them it is a big challenge that whatever the technology which are available, improved package of practices, that has to be reached to the farmer field. And this is going to be a big change. If you are going to implement all these improved package of practices at the farmer field, obviously the maize productivity will be very, very high. And the next one is the regional seed hub. That is a very important aspect now, because whatever the maize seed production is now happening, it is in the peninsular India or southern part of our country. But the maize is grown as a east, west, north, south. Every part of our country, the maize is cultivated. So reaching out the hybrid quality seed from the south to the north to the east to the west, it is a very difficult task. And is increase the cost of transportation and ultimately increase in the seed cost. So we have to create the regional seed hub around in the North India also, in the Western India also, in the Eastern India also, so that we can meet the domestic seed requirement and at a well in time. And then another one is the post-harvest management is another aspect where we can work hard. And then nowadays the maize is going to be used as a silage also. It is a very, very important crop to be used as a silage. It is coming in a big way, and the people who are working as a breeder, they can look for the silage maize development also, or the hybrid which are suitable for the silage maize. And insect pests are now they are the continuously we are facing the problem like fall armyworm, which introduced in India in 2018, and that has created a lot of problem in the maize cultivations. So the newly introduced insect pest, that is always be a big problem. So this is also an important challenge. Then market linkage and policy intervention, they are another aspect which need to be taken care while increasing the maize production and productivity in the country. So we have to look for the some sort of the higher price. Now already government of India has announced the MSP that 2019 per quintal or 20.90 rupees per kg. And now maize is selling at the rate of even more than that also, because the demand of maize is increasing nowadays because of the ethanol production. So it is a very important aspect. So now if you look into the stresses, in general, what we call stress is a kind of strain or interference that disturb the normal functioning of the organism or plants. So if you look into the maize, there are various abiotic and biotic stresses are available, that are the abiotic which is very, very important. And among the abiotic stresses, drought and waterlogging and heat. These three stresses are very, very important. Now cold stress is very prevalent in some part of the country, and nutrients and salinity stress, they all are comes under the abiotic stresses. If you talk about the biotic stresses, we are having the very important fungal diseases like banded leaf and sheath blight. That is a big challenge now. And then Tusker leaf blight, Maize leaf blight, how somehow they are manageable. Charcoal rot is also very, very important disease. Post flowering stalk rot is also another very important disease. So the pathology people, they can think upon that how we can develop the management strategy for the management of these particular disease, or breeder who are working, they can develop the germplasm which are resistant or tolerant to these important diseases. If you talk about the bacterial diseases, the bacterial stalk rot is a very, very important disease in maize. And then weeds, insect, as I told, the fall armyworm, pink stem borer, they are very, very important insect in maize. So these all comes under the biotic stresses. If you talk about the abiotic stresses, the higher and lower, they are both are the comes under the stress. In left side, you can see that if there is a scarcity of water, that is the drought. If there is a excess of water, there is a waterlogging stress. So intermediate, that is the optimum conditions, and it is suitable for the crop cultivation. So to our lower side, to our higher sides, in abiotic stresses, they are comes under the stress. So if you talk about the breeding methods which are we can adopt for developing the climate resilient maize, so there are various conventional methods and innovative approaches now. If you talk about the selections and the crossing program, they are the part of the conventional breeding. Among these also there are different kinds. So in case of selections, wherever you want to develop the cultivar or in the synthetic or composite variety, you can directly select those variety in stress conditions. And if you want to go for development of hybrids, so obviously you have to go for the crossing program. So both of the parents should be, whatever the parental line you're going to use in breeding program to develop the hybrids, they should be tolerant to various abiotic stresses. So they will go through the crossing program. And the field phenotyping or screening is very, very important segment in the abiotic or climate resilient breeding. There are different kind of approaches which we can go for the screening of a germplasm or material. The first one is the field screening, which we can do itself in the field, because the advanced facilities like phenomics or rainwater shelter, if sometimes they are available with the breeder, or sometimes they are not available, those facilities are not available. So wherever they are not available, the people can go for the field screening also, and under the managed stress condition. Managed stress condition means, suppose if you are going to breed for or evaluate the germplasm for the drought, you can just create a drought stress plot in your field, one as a stress condition, another as a control conditions, where you will follow all the package of practices, and you can provide the stress for which you are going to target. There are different kind of critical growth stages where you can target the for that particular stress. So phenomics facilities, wherever they are available, you can go for the using all those facilities. They will improve the efficiency of your breeding program. And then the conventional breeding program, which I told about, that selections and crossing, where different strategies are available. Once you have screened, then you can use those material in a breeding program. Through selections, you can proceed, or through crossing program, you can integrate the desirable genes from one donor to the recipient parent. And then molecular tools and are also available. Genometering also, as I told, that is also it comes in the innovative approaches. So the critical growth stages for the drought or any type of abiotic stress in maize is the seedling stage, flowering, and early grain filling. These are the three very, very important stress stages, and one can look for all these particular stages when you are breeding for a abiotic stresses. So whenever, suppose if you are targeting that I want the genotype which are tolerant at flowering stage for the drought or waterlogging. So you have to provide the stress 10 days before initiation of the flowering, so that you can have the wetter effect, at the flowering stage. If you are going to stop the irrigation in a field condition at the flowering itself, then it will not give you the right screening, or it will not give you the right genotype. So if you want to have the tolerant genotype for the flowering stress, you have to provide the stress to the plants 10 days before the initiation of the flowering. Okay, so that will help you to have the stress at the flowering stage. That will give you the more stress at the flowering stage. So similar is the case with the this grain filling also. So and seedling stage also. So if you are going to have the genotype at 25 to 30 days to growth stage, then you have to provide the stress around 10 days before, so that the effect of stress can be more at that particular target stage. So all these approaches, they are in the two, we can group them in a two different categories. One is the top to bottom approach, another the bottom to top approach. So left side, you can see this is the top to bottom, means you have the phenotype in your hand, and you can go from phenotype to genotype, right? So that is the top to bottom approach. And if there is, you are proceeding from genotype genes to the phenotype, then that is the bottom to top approach. So in this case, suppose if you have any kind of germplasm available, you can go for the evaluation. After evaluation, you can identify the tolerant or susceptible genotype. You can develop the mapping populations, and you can map the genes. So from phenotype, you identify the genes, okay, or QTN, or wherever you have the candidate genes in your hand that may be the responsible for any kind of abiotic and abiotic stresses, that genes you can select it, can bioinformatically, you can go for further studies in silico approach. You can identify the genes which are playing a role in various abiotic and abiotic stresses in maize or in related crops, and those genes you can search in your maize genomes and can study the functional. And then after function, once you satisfy that this gene is playing an important role for the mechanism which is playing a very important role in the stress tolerance mechanism. So from genes, you can move to the phenotype. So that kind of approach is the bottom to top approach, right? So when you are going to develop now we are talking more about the hybrid, because now it's the need of era. Because if you want to increase the production and productivity in the country, obviously you have to go for the single cross hybrids, because they are high in yield, their productivity is very high as compared to the OPB or composite or synthetic varieties. So I will talk more about the hybrid breeding or development of hybrids, climate resilient hybrids, right? So the main important step of hybrid breedings are the first of all, you should have to have the diverse inbred lines in your hand. Once they are there with you, you can evaluate those inbred lines for the various biotic and abiotic stresses or any breeding desirable breeding traits. And then after that, you can group those inbred lines in various heterotic groups. Once they are grouped, you can go for using in crossing program. And then after that, you can identify a suitable hybrids or heterotic combination. And those heterotic combination you can evaluate in your station trial. And if perform well in the station trial, you can enter those entry in the All India Coordinated Research project. And then after that, your variety, if it perform well in the national trials, it will be identified, then it will be released and notified. And then after that, it will go in the seed multiplication chain. So this is the overall summary of the hybrid breeding, right? So if you want to develop the climate resilient hybrid, there are different kind of approaches, strategy are available. These are based on our practical experience. You will not find many kind of such kind of things in the textbook, because this what we felt in the field that I'm going to share with you, that there are three strategies you can categorize for the developing the climate resilient hybrid. The first one is the long-term strategy. Long-term strategy means that will take a little bit more time. That why it will take more time? Because first, the hybrid, you have, if you want to develop a hybrids, you have to have the inbred lines or parental line in your hand. And those parental line you have to develop from a kind of source germplasm, right? So those source germplasm, if you have the source germplasm, many source germplasms are available, 10 or 13, 50 populations are available. Those populations initially you can evaluate for the various abiotic and abiotic stresses, and then the tolerant population you can use to develop the inbred lines. Okay, and once inbred line develop, that inbred lines again you can evaluate for the abiotic and abiotic stresses, and from that you can select the tolerant inbred lines for the development of hybrids. And if you selected the tolerant inbred lines from the set of inbred lines available with you, then you can develop the hybrids, and those hybrids again you can evaluate for the abiotic and abiotic stresses. So it means here 3-time evaluation you are going to do for the abiotic and abiotic stresses. It will take a little bit more time, but the probability of getting the tolerant hybrids or climate resilient hybrids is very high in the long-term strategy. Then you come to the medium-term strategy. Suppose if you have 10 or 15 population, source germplasm population in your hand, and you don't want to evaluate those for the drought or waterlogging or disease or insect pest. Directly you want to derive the inbred lines from them, right? So whatever inbred lines you will derive from those, you can evaluate those inbred lines for the abiotic and abiotic stresses, and then tolerant inbred lines from that set of lines you can utilize to develop the hybrids. And then again, hybrids you can evaluate for the drought and waterlogging or any kind of abiotic and abiotic stresses. So here, instead of 3 times in the long-term strategy, you are going to have the 2-time evaluation for the drought and waterlogging. And then again, suppose if you don't want to evaluate your inbred lines, you don't want to evaluate your population directly, because ultimate product is the hybrid only. So in short-term strategy, you can directly use the available inbred lines or any source germplasm to derive the inbred line without evaluating them for the abiotic stresses. You can take those lines, you can make the crosses, you can develop the heterotic combination, and those heterotic combination you can evaluate it for the drought, waterlogging, or any kind of abiotic and abiotic stresses, right? So here in short-term strategy, you are going to evaluate the hybrid itself only for the multiple abiotic or abiotic stresses. So it is a short-term strategy. If anybody don't want to follow the long-term strategy or medium-term strategy, they want the immediate product. They want the immediate hybrid which is tolerant to abiotic or abiotic stresses, or the hybrid which is climate resilient. Then directly you have the inbred line in your hand, you make the crosses, you develop the hybrids, evaluate those hybrids for the various abiotic and abiotic stresses, and identify the tolerant hybrid. That will be the climate resilient hybrid, and you can recommend for the commercial cultivation, right? So these are the 3 important, very important strategy which one can follow for the developing the climate resilient hybrids. Now we talk about the segment of hybrids. In that, the inbred line is very, very important, because a productive inbred lines can give you the better hybrids. So how to develop the inbred lines? The summary I will share with you, that all of you are aware of that, but just to update that, if you have any source germplasm, you can go for the selfing of selected plants from that, and from first generation of selfing, you can continue it for the S6 or S7, or you can move to the 6 or 7 selfing from that particular source germplasm. And in the subsequent generation of selfing, you have to select the desirable genotype. You need not to self all the plants which you started from the beginning. You have to reject more and you have to select less. So a very successful breeder can have the around 5 to 10% selections. If you have the hundreds family in your hand, out of those, if you are going to select the 5 or 10 family and you are going to reject 90 or 95, then you are a good breeder. Okay, so in subsequent generation, you have to reject the maximum population which is not performing well, or families which are not performing well, and hardly you have to select only the best among the better, that is around 5 to 10%. Okay, and once you develop the inbred lines, you have to maintain its purity also. That part I will deal subsequently. And then that inbred lines, you can group them in a heterotic groups, because if you want to develop the hybrids, you have to group your material in a different heterotic groups. That will increase the success rate of developing any productive hybrids. Okay, if you have thousands germplasm line inbred line in your hand, you cannot go for using all those inbred lines and developing the hybrid. So you have to group them in a different heterotic groups like A or B. So out of thousands, you may find some inbred lines which are coming in a group A, or some inbred lines which are coming in a group B, or some inbred lines which are coming in a group C. So out of thousands, suppose 100 comes in a group A, 500 comes in a group B. So it means crossing within a group will not give you the productive hybrid. So the 500 inbred lines which are coming in a group B, you need not to make the crosses among them. You need to make the crosses between the A and B. So that will increase the efficiency of your breeding program, right? So this is another one. And how you can group your inbred lines? You just have to have the best tester, any suitable tester, which is already there with the breeder. If they are not there, there is a separate program for developing the suitable tester. So that tester you can utilize. You can go for the making crosses with your inbred lines, and those inbred lines crosses you can evaluate at multiple locations. And based on their combining ability, you can go for the GCSC testing and can group the inbred lines in various heterotic groups and can use them for the developing the hybrid. Now, if you talk about the inbred line development, there are two different kind of strategy which we adopt for the developing the inbred lines. One is the first cycle of inbred line, that is long-term strategy. Another one is the short-term strategy. In long-term strategy, what we do, we use the source germplasm in the form of a composite in the synthetic or any diverse population as a source material to develop the inbred lines. So whatever the population will be there with you, you have to select the selected plant or suitable plants which you feel, and then you have to continue select them for from S1 to S7. And as I told that in the subsequent generation, you have to reject maximum, you have to select minimum, and that percentage around 5 to 10%. And then at last, when you reach to the S6, you can evaluate those for the inbred lines for the, that will be get fixed, and then fixed line you can evaluate for the various white-tick and white-tick stresses. But now there is another strategy that early generation testing can also be followed. That is just to improve the efficiency, because now cost is a very, very important component. So it is not possible to bring out or to carry on the maximum many of the families from the S1 to S7 and then test it for the various white-tick stresses at the S7 stage. That will increase the cost of your breeding program. So there is a strategy that early generation testing, that if you have gone for 3 or 4 selfing, you himself can test your inbred lines or that material for the various not performing better on that, performing better. So this is the early generation testing. Once you have the inbred lines in your hand, again, as I told that you can group them for the various heterotic groups. And if anybody don't want to go for heterotic grouping because it is a long-term process, heterotic grouping itself is a very long-term process. And now there is a stress on the breeder that you have developed the hybrids. So simply you can go for you just categorize your parental line in a good seed parent, one is a flint. Maximum probability will be there, the dent and flint. When you cross the dent with the flint or flint with the dent, definitely you will get the maximum heterosis. Or if you have categorized your material based on the phenotype, and that one is the good, as you can use as a good pollen parent, another one you can use a good seed parent or female parent. So it means you can cross them and then you can get the probability of getting the hybrid is very high. But I will recommend that simultaneously a parallel program should be continue to group your material in different heterotic groups. That is very, very important. In second cycle of inbred line, that is short-term strategy, what here we do, we use the single cross hybrid, double cross hybrid, 3-way cross hybrid as a source germplasm. We are not going to use population, which is very much heterogeneous, heterozygous, and diverse. So that will take a lot of time for little bit more time to get it fixed. But when you are going to use the single cross hybrid, double cross hybrid, because there you are going to utilize only 2, 3, or maximum 4 parent blood. So it means that is not so diverse, but it has already undergone inbreeding depression. This is very, very important. Once you self the line or population, then there is going to be an inbreeding depression, or that the line will be very weak and the performance will be very, very low. So that has to be rejected. So that will be more in the case of when you're going to use as a source germplasm, as a population as a source germplasm. But that is very, very less in the second cycle of inbred lines, or where you're going to use the single cross hybrid, double cross hybrid, 3-way cross hybrid as a source material, because the parental line of these hybrids has already undergone the inbreeding depression, and the allele which are responsible for inbreeding depression, that has already been culled out from the population. So it means now the genotype which is available or that is available with you, or a hybrid parent of hybrids that is already having the superior allele. So there is no inbreeding depressions in that. So that will take less time to get it fixed, and then you will get the inbred lines very early. And even in the S3, S4, you itself in the hybrid development program. Okay, so that is why it is called as a short-term strategy. The rest of things will be remain same. You can evaluate them for the biotic and abiotic stresses. You can group them in heterotic groups. If you don't have the time to go for long-term strategy of heterotic grouping, then you can categorize your parental lines in the form of a dent or flint or any diverse kind of parents, or good pollen parent, good seed parent, right? So then you can use develop the crosses, but simultaneously, parallelly, you can also keep on doing the heterotic grouping. Okay. So now once you have inbred lines in your hand, now we have to maintain the purity of that. That is very, very important. If you identify any tolerant inbred lines and you're not going to maintain its purity, that will be deteriorate the performance of your hybrids, and that will be, totally destroy the breeding program. So the maintenance breeding is a kind of branch of breeding where you're going to maintain the purity. Suppose at some point of time, because maize is a highly cross-pollinated crops, and there is a very, every chance is available that the contamination can happen at any point of time. When your parental lines or seed production going on a large scale, the things are not in your control, and pollen can move from here to there, and then there is a chance of contamination, right? So the breeder has the possibility to purify that line. Suppose if it is contaminated, how it is purified, that is a maintenance breeding. And then I will tell you how to maintain, how to retain the purity of inbred lines. Suppose if your inbred lines or the parental line of any hybrids got contaminated, then what you can do, you can select the individual cob of all those parental lines, and then go for sowing one cob 1 year. I mean, one cob, one row, one cob, one row. Each cob you have to sow in a one row separately, and then you look for the uniformity. Row wise, you see for the uniformity, and then you keep some balance of all each and every cob. Suppose if you have one cob, 10 cob, you go for sowing of 10 rows. 10 cob means 10 rows. One cob, one row. And you can retain some quantity seed of individual cob also. And after when the crop grow or germinated, at flowering or early before flowering, you can see for the uniformity on those lines. And then whichever the cob is contaminated, that will be reflected in the row, and those row can be rejected, and then balance seed of that particular cob should also be rejected, right? Out of 10, if you are going to have the contaminated cob in 4 or 5, then those 4 or 5 cob can be rejected, and remaining 6 to 4 cob can be selected, and then the balance seed of those cob can be bulked. So then that will give you the 100% uniformity in your inbred lines, right? So this is the way that how we can purify the line. Now you have the inbred lines in your hand, or parental lines in your hand. Now you have to select the suitable pollen parent or female parent from them. To develop a hybrids, you need to have the good pollen parent. Good pollen parent is very, very, very important, because it is going to increase the seed productivity. If your pollen parent is not having the better tassel, it will not give you the sufficient pollen for the production, and the ratio of the male and female in the hybrid seed production, which I will deal in subsequent slides, that will be very low, and the seed yield will be very, very low. So the first and foremost requirement in the good pollen parent is that is a male parent. You need to have the profuse tassel, right? And the height of the male parent should be a little bit higher than that of the female parent, because the pollen dispersed through wind, and if tassel is the male parent is longer than the female parent, it will come in a contact with the air, and the pollen dispersion will be very efficient and effective. And the grain color should be, it should be attractive, and generally all the male parent or female parent should have the strong stem, and should be tolerant to the various abiotic and biotic stresses. If you look into the female characteristics, the line which you are going to use in hybrid breeding as a female to develop a hybrid, what are the characteristics you will look upon? The first and foremost is that your female productivity should be very, very high, because it will govern the seed yield in the farmer field. If the female productivity is high, the productivity of seed will be more, and that will give you the good seed yield, and ultimately will increase the income of the farmer, or those the people who are taking the seed production. then it should have the strong stem, and the placement should be low. It should not be too high, because this trait is very heritable, and the female cob, I mean the placement of female cob is very much prominent in the hybrids. So if it toward the higher side, upper side, that will be damaged by the cob, will be damaged by the word. And if there is a wind blow, if there is a waterlogging, then lodging losses will be very, very high. So the low cob placement is always preferred, but it should not be too low, because in that case, the disease like banded leaf and sheath blight will damage the crop. So better to be, it should be toward the middle side, right? And the anthisilk interval should be low, because should be less, because more the anthisilk interval, anthisilk interval means the difference between the anthesis and the difference between the silking. So generally in maize, there is a 2 to 3 days difference is there, and it should be low. If it is low, then the crop will be very, I mean, tolerant to drought or waterlogging stress, and there will be good seed setting. If it is higher, if the anthisilk interval is too higher, like 6 or 7 days or 9 days, 10 days, your seed setting will be not be available. So it means the shorter anthisilk interval is very, very important, and it will be very helpful for the drought, waterlogging stress total. The female should be nutrient responsive, and it should have the stay green trait, because stay green trait is very, very important for the drought, for the waterlogging, any kind of abiotic and vital stresses. Stay green trait is very, very important. Leaves should be erect. If there is a leaf erectness in the leaf, it will be helpful in the increase in the planting density, as well as it will help to survive the plant under the low moisture stress, because the transpiration losses will be less. Okay, and then generally it should be tolerant to many to major abiotic and vitic stresses, and it should have the strong root system. So these are the traits which will look for the female. Once you have male and female in your hand, now you can go for development of hybrids. How you can develop? There are 3 to 4 kind of hybrids are available. The first one is single cross hybrid, where you're going to have the only 2 parent, and another one is the double cross hybrid, where you're going to have the 4 parent. Another one is the 3-way cross hybrid, where you're going to have the 3 parent as a parental line in the hybrid. So in case of double cross, if you look into the A and B will be crossed first, then C and D will be crossed. Then from that, whatever the F1 will come, they again will be crossed, and then double cross hybrid will come. It will be for the commercial cultivation. But the issue is that the uniformity will be low. The uniformity will be very high in the case of single cross hybrid, but it will be very low in the double cross hybrid. Yield wise also, the single cross hybrid will be higher in yield, a little bit higher in yield. Double cross will be have the low in yield, because each and every cob in single cross hybrid will be of uniform size, uniform color, but this is not the case in case of double cross hybrids. And the market value will also be very high for the single cross hybrid, right? So it is very much important to go for the single cross development. Now, single cross development, they already have the inbuilt tolerance to various abiotic and vitic stresses, because we are going to explore the heterosis in them, and the inbuilt line which we use as a parental line in developing those hybrids, they have already been tested for the various abiotic and vitic stresses, and that is why the hybrid which we develop, that is tolerant to many abiotic and vitic stresses. Now I will move to the seed production. So if you talk about the seed production in our country or in general, there are 4 categories of seeds are available. The first one is nucleus seed, then second is breeder seed, then foundation seed, then certified seeds. So these all are linked with each other. From nucleus seed, you will produce the breeder seed. From breeder seed, you will produce the foundation seed. From foundation seed, you will produce the certified seed. So these are very, very important classes. If there is a contamination in the nucleus seed, then that contamination will be, if it is a 10 time in the nucleus seed, it will go to the 1 lakh time in the certified seed. So one should be very, very important, careful for the maintaining the purity of your parental lines. So it should be 100% pure, and breeder seed and nucleus seeds are generally with the breeder who have developed the hybrid. So they are almost 100% pure. There should not be any impurity in the nucleus and breeder seed. But in case of foundation seed, because we take this in a large scale, so it is very difficult to maintain the purity. So to a certain extent, we are allowing that 98% impurity they are allowed in the foundation seed. And then from foundation, we multiply the certified seed. And then the certified seed, because it is again in the large, very, very large area, so it is also very difficult to maintain the 100% purity. So, but you should have to have a more than 95% uniformity, then only it will be successful. So those who want to start the hybrid seed production, the prerequisite for the quality seed production, that the first and foremost that you should have to have the diverse inbuilt lines, the parental lines of your hybrids in your hand, and then you should have the proper isolation distance in a crop like maize, because isolation distance is very, very important. If there is no isolation distance, then your contamination will be happen, and it will deteriorate the quality of your hybrid seed and ultimately to the performance of your hybrid. Then you should have the improved package of practices or technology available for the seed production, because seed production itself is a science. So you should know the technology, that kind of package and practices which should be followed in the hybrid seed production, and then manpower should be, technically experienced. No, all people cannot go for the seed production. There is a need of, maintaining the synchrony between the male and female. There is need to go for detasseling of the female parent, and there is need to go for the nutrients and disease, insect pest management. So the manpower should be technically experienced. And that wherever you're going to have the seed production, the stress, it should be the stress-free season. And then ecology or site should also be the stress-free. And the land should be fertile, and there should be a proper irrigation facility should be available. That is very, very important. So what kind of field you can select? You can select the field which is around the road, because that will help you in the transportation. And if you look into the soil, the sandy loam to clay loam soil is very much preferable. And there should be a proper drainage facility should be available. And isolation distance, minimum isolation distance, you have to have around 400 to 500 meters. Isolation distance means if you are taking a X hybrid seed production in one plot and you are taking Y hybrid seed production in another plot, then the difference, the distance between these two plots should be 400 to 500 meters. But in generally, it is very difficult to maintain the isolation distance in the farmer field, because it is very difficult to control the farmer. Anyone, they are free to cultivate the maize, so they can go for the cultivation of another kind of hybrids. And if they are not going to stop it, then their contamination will happen. So the concept of seed village concept is in the place where we can select one village for one hybrid. Suppose if you are taking a X hybrid seed production in one village, you just go for that village only for that particular X hybrid, and another way you can go for the Y hybrid for another village. So in that case, there is no need of isolation distance, because you are taking the seed production of only one hybrid in one village, right? So that is another case. And sometimes if still it is not possible, then you can go for stagger sowing. Suppose if one farmer is taking hybrid seed production of X hybrid in a one date of sowing, then you can at least retain the 10 to 50 or 15 to 20 days differences. And then you can postpone or prepone your sowing, and then just have the difference of around 20 days. And then you can take the seed production within a 400 meter also you can take. But that practice generally be avoided, because sowing time is also very, very important. If you're not going to have the right time of sowing, the seed production will be affected. So, but I am telling just any kind of situation where the things are not manageable in your hand, then you can think of the stagger sowing also. Now, what kind of sowing time should be? So it's very, very important. If you look into the southern part of our country, the seed production generally be taken in the Rabi season, and the right time of sowing is September to October. And if you look into the western part and eastern part of the country, then the first fortnight of the November is the right time. And sometime we are thinking to move the seed production in the hill area also. And in there, we are going to have the right suitable time is the spring season. That February, March is the right time. But in this case, we should have to have the irrigation facilities also, and the crop should not be affected, by the heat stress, because the flowering stage, there should not be temperature should not go beyond 35 degrees centigrade. Then only it will be possible. But in case of spring season, we cannot think about the seed production in the southern India or any central India, because the flowering will come in April, May, and at that time the temperature will be more than 45. But yes, in the hilly area, it is possible. And the sowing time should be we should go for the sowing in such a way that the flowering stage should not be coincide with the excess rainfall. Right? The ridges sowing is always preferable, because that will help you to maintain the proper the field conditions. You can go for easily field operations also. So line sowing in ridges is always preferable. From line to line, you can maintain the 60 to 75 distance. From plant to plant, you can go for the 20 centimeter distance. Okay. Now come to the male-female ratio. As I told that if your male part is profuse, then you can increase the female number of rows. And that increasing female rows means you are going to have the very high yield in the seed production. So general ratio is 1:2, is 1:3, 1:4. But sometimes now farmers are also going for the 1:5 also. So it depends upon the kind of pollen parent you have identified. If there is tassel is very good, you're going to have you can increase the number of female row because the sufficient pollen will be available for those 4 or 5 rows of female. Sometimes male and female, because breeder breed for the parental line which are having the perfect synchrony, but sometimes it is not in our case because flowering is governed by the various environmental factor also. So there is a change in sometimes changing in the male and female flowering can destroy your seed production also, because if there is no proper synchrony between the male and female, then seed setting will not be there. So in that situation, you can manage certain extent, to certain extent, around 3 to 4 days gap you can manage by agronomical intervention. Suppose if your female parent is lagging behind, you can give extra urea to that, or you can spray 2% urea on the female row, and you need not to do anything in the male row, and vice versa for the male. So in that way, you can just compensate the 2 to 3 days, or even to 3 to 4 days gap between the male and female flowering. Now, nutrient management, as it is already as a normal, whatever we are going to utilize in commercial cultivation, but in case of seed production, because inbred lines are little bit weak than that of hybrids, so we give more NPK as compared to the syncross hybrids. So in this case, we are taking around 200 kg of nitrogen, 80 kg each of phosphorus and potash, and wherever the soil is deficient in zinc, we can go for 25 kg per hectare, and then whole of PK with 10% of nitrogen can apply as a basal dose, and remaining 90% nitrogen we can give in a ratio that 20% at the 4 to 6 leaf stage, 30% at the 8 leaf stage, the remaining 30% at the flowering stage, and the remaining 10% at the grain filling stage. So this is the way that we can go for the management of the nutrients in seed production. Now, water management, the critical growth stages are the seedling stage is very critical, knee high stage is also very critical, flowering stage is critical, grain filling is also critical, and then 10 days after grain filling. So these are the 5 to 6 stages which are very, very important for the irrigation. And at these particular stages, the crop should be irrigated. Then only you will have the better seed production. Weed management also, there are a lot of pre-emergence herbicides are available now. I am sure that Dr. S.L. Jat might have covered all these components. The same we are going to follow in the seed production also. But in case of commercial cultivation, now post-emergence herbicides, there are a lot of post-emergence herbicides are in the place now. But in seed production, the post-emergence herbicide we generally avoid because because in seed production we are going to have the parental line, inbred lines as such. So inbred lines are little bit, they are going to be affected by the post-emergence herbicide. But yes, the pre-emergence herbicide we can easily use in the case of the seed production. So pre-emergence followed by the 1 or 2 hoeing with the manually or by tractor, easily you can maintain the weeds in the crop. Now, insect pest is also a big issue, and then among the insect pests, the phala mimo is a very, very important problem now, and in seed production also it is a big problem. There are a lot of insecticides are available, collagen, ampligos, spinotrams, and imamectin benzoate. So many insecticides are available, and they can go and apply in the field as and when we are going to have the larvae or the eggs of your phala mimo. Okay, so this is for the insect pest management. Earthing up is very important because it will help you to maintain the proper plant stand, and also it will increase the standability. So before earthing, you can go for application of nitrogen, and then next day you can go for the earthing up. It can be done manually or it can be done by tractor also. Detasseling is very, very important, and it is generally done in the case of female only. We are not going to detassel the male parent because male tassel we are going to use it for the pollen. So female we are going to detassel it. So the detasseling should be is a very critical aspect in the seed production, and it should be continued for 8 to 10 days. Whenever the plant their flowering appear, one has to visit the field every day, continue for 8 to 10 days, so that there should not be any tassel remain out in the field in the case of the female parent. So this is very important. And while detasseling, one should not remove the flag leaf, because that is very important. If one is going to remove the flag leaf, you are going to have the 10 to 50% low yield in the seed. So this is very, very important. I will tell you that how to go for detasseling. There are 3 ways we have shown the detasseling. First and second, they are right way of detasseling. This is the right way of tasseling. No, it should not be open. Once it open, it will affect the contaminated. Means female pollen will again pollinate the female parent, and then that will be a kind of inbred lines only, and the hybrid it will not be a true hybrid, right? The extreme right side, you can see this is the open pollen. The tassel is completely open, and this is wrong stage now. It is not the stage for the detasseling. You have to detassel the plant when your tassel is not completely open. If it is open, it means it is of no use. So you have to detassel it before it get open. then only it will be effective. Okay, so sometimes there is the issue of synchrony, as I told you, that how we can manipulate it. We can irrigate the female parent, or we can, or whichever is lagging behind. Either it's a male or it's a female. We can irrigate them. Either we can spray the urea, we can apply the FIM. So these are the strategy through which we can manipulate around 3 to 4 days differences in the flowering of male and female. Stages of crop inspection is very, very important. One has to visit at the time of sowing, where he or she can see for the isolation distance, planting ratio, proper sowing time, seed treatment. Also, this is actually the stage. Sorry. Yeah. And then one is the pre-flowering is very, very important. Once it flower, then you are not going to remove the off-type plant, your contamination will be there. And so it will deteriorate the quality of your hybrid seed. Flowering stage also one can visit and can see the disease. I mean, you can see for the disease and insect infestation. And then another one, the post-flowering and pre-harvesting stage also, one need to visit. They can remove the late plants sometime, in female, if some plants get delayed, so they will flower. And 8 to 10 days detaching will not solve the purpose. So in that case, the late coming plants can also be removed after the post flowering visit, And then harvesting time, to see the proper time of harvesting, that is very, very important. And the removal of type, I have shown you that here sometimes disease insect pest plants are there. They has to be removed out from the field, and off time which are lagging behind or which are coming in a very heterotic way or vigorous, both the plant has to be removed. Only uniform plants should be there in the field. Harvesting should be done at the time 18 to 20% moisture. If it is not done at it is done at a higher moisture like 35-40%, it will definitely deteriorate the quality and it will affect the germination of the seed. And then the aflatoxin will be a big issue in that. So one should go for harvesting only when your moisture percentage reaches to the 18 to 20% and the crop is fully matured or physiologically maturity has attained. And after harvesting, one should spread the cob on the threshing floor, tarpaulin in the tarpaulin in a tarpaulin or tarpal like that kind of material, and should properly dry it. And before shelling, the moisture should not be more than 13 to 14%. Once it reaches to 13 to 14%, from 18 to 20, it reaches to 13 to 40%, you can go for the shelling. The shelling can be manually for the small quantity of seeds, and if it is not, it is a big amount, then you can go for the mechanical shelling. There are a lot of shellers are available. And at the post harvest also one can see for the contamination, although it will not be so effective, but still one can regulate the some kind of, to a certain extent one can remove the off type plants, cob. So if your shank color is white and there are the color yellow color, purple color shanks are available, you can remove them because they are contaminated, right? So at this point of time, you can also see for some kind of purity also and impurity also, but it is not so effective because already it has been contaminated, it has contaminated the rest of the plant, but to a certain extent, you can also take care of that. And sometimes if your parental line is a dent, in that you are getting flint, then the flint cob you can remove that. And if your cob are yellow, your female parental line is yellow, and some cob you are getting white, those white can be removed out. So all these are the way that how you can manage the purity of the male and female plant or the hybrid seed. Then while drying or while shelling, the kernel should not be damaged, that will otherwise they will affect the germination. And the damaged kernel will be more attacked by the insect pests. So that will deteriorate the quality of your hybrid seed, And the storage is very, very important. It should be stored at 8 to 10% moisture. And then whatever the bag you are going to use, it should be moisture proof. There should not be, there should not be the moisture contamination. Otherwise, there is if there is a moisture movement from outside, it will increase the moisture inside the bag, and that will lead to the deterioration of your quality of your hybrid seed. And then it should be stored in a cool and dry place. If it is not immediately need to be transferred to the farmer field, then you can store it in a cool and dry place. If it is for the short term, at least 4-degree temperature. If it is for long term, at least minus 20 degrees centigrade is required. So likewise, you can store it if you're not going immediately in the market. But try to take it out as early as possible. If you do not have any storage facilities, then you should immediately sell the seed to the farmers, and then that will be retained. That will help you retain the quality. Then if you look into the seed production cost, the most of the component goes to the land that is we use for the the seed production. That may be rental land or your own land. So around 50% resources that goes to the land. So one can look upon that. Lump sum, if anybody want to go for the hybrid seed production, in case of maize, it is around 60 to 70,000 rupees per hectare. And if you look into the total yield, if you take the minimum yield of seed, that is 2.5 ton per hectare or 25 quintal per hectare, it is generally generally it is very easily one can harvest it. And 25 quintal per hectare, it will give you around minimum 3 to 3.5 lakh turnover from that. And if you consider 60, 70,000 cost of cultivation, easily you can have the 2.5 to 3 lakh rupees per hectare as a net return. So how you can see how much important it is, seed production it is. So the agriculture graduate, which are not getting the employment at this point of time, they can think for this kind of seed production business, and from 1 hectare they can earn around 2.5 to 3 lakh net return they can get it. So including all the cost of cultivation, after taking out it could out around 2.5 to 3 lakh per hectare, the farm the one can get the net return from the seed production. So here is the little kind of breeder seed production which we are taking care in the state of Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and then West Bengal. And if you look into the trend of hybrid seed, whatever the hybrid which we develop from our institutes, the day by day their seed intent is increasing, and now they are in the top, continuously they are in the top position for last 3 to 4 years, and we are meeting out the seed demand by creating the alternate hub. As I told that we are creating alternate hub in the West Bengal also. Now we are trying to do it in the Punjab also. In future, we'll also try to look into the another part of the country so that the hybrid seed production can be effective, and it can be meet out the requirement of farmer can be meet out by from the quality seed production. So many of the hybrid which we developed, we are also collaborating with the private sectors. A lot of hybrid which we had developed, they have been taken up by the various private seed company also, and so we are working together with the private company also to meet out the demand of seed. And here is the impact of the hybrid which we developed from our institutes in the last 3 years. On an average, this 3 to 4 years, these two hybrid around 1301, 1308 has gone to around 1 million hectare area. And for last 3 years, these two hybrids have the highest share in the breeder seed demand which we received through Government of India. And more than 18 companies, they have taken up these two hybrids. And if you look into the breeder seed which has gone into the seed chain, more than 2 ton or 22 ton or 220 quintal of breeder seed has gone into the seed chain. That itself is a big quantity, because if you want to cover the 10 million hectare of maize under hybrid cultivation, we need around 160 quintal of breeder seed only. So in the last 5 years, more than 220 quintal of breeder seed has gone into the seed chain for these two hybrid only. This is the climate resilient hybrid which we are talking about, we developed, and this is very good hybrid for the rain-fed ecology, already doing wonderful in the farmer field. And this is yielding around 7 to 8 ton itself in the rain-fed ecology or in stress-prone ecology. And this is a hybrid released in the last year only. So this is another hybrid which is short duration hybrid which is doing wonderful in the farmer field also, developed from our institutes. This is a biofortified hybrid short duration. As I didn't share with you that there are three mechanisms basically. One is escape, one is the avoidance, one is the tolerance. So escape is very much important in the case of short duration hybrids, which generally escape the drought stress or waterlogging stress or any kind of abiotic stresses by maturing in a minimum period of time. For example, if you talk about the LQMH1, which is short duration, it can mature in 80-85 days in case of in the central and southern part of the country, and in the case of hill area, around 95 to 100 days. So other hybrid will take 120 days in hill area and 110 days in the central part of the country, but this hybrid will take 80 to 85 days, or it means it will take around 1 month less than that of those. So it will save the irrigation, 2 to 3 irrigations. So likewise, this hybrids have the capability to escape the drought stress mechanism. Okay. So this is all about myself from my side. Thank you very much for listening this lecture from my side. And now I will request that if some kind of inquiry you have, you can discuss. We can discuss here. So thank you very much.